It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 16 of season 3, I got to talk to you, the people, about a few quick things. First off, if you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. Revved Up 906 is your home for all Detroit Pistons news, topics, debate topics, all of the above. Make sure to like and subscribe if you happen to like our podcast. And if you are a subscriber and want to wear our merch, click the link in the description below. That link will send you to Grind Clothing Co.'s website, where you can check out a plethora of different design options that Grind Clothing Co. has created for us. They are our official merch sponsor, and they also have different designs that they've created on their own that maybe you'll like, maybe you'll be able to pull off some swag. So make sure to go check out Grind Clothing Co.'s website. And then if you aren't so much into long form content, but happen to be tuning into today's episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram. That link is also in the description below, because we post reels, debate topics, hot takes on our Instagram. So make sure to go follow us if you happen to like short form content more. Also, our Detroit trip is coming up this weekend. We do a yearly Detroit trip where we check out the Detroit Pistons, Red Wings, and this year we will be watching a Tigers game at the great and historic Comerica Park against the Chicago White Sox. So looking forward to that, and a lot of content coming from Detroit. We will be recording 2 podcasts while in Detroit. We'll also be posting 2 vlogs to our YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe to be on the lookout for our Detroit Pistons content this coming weekend. A lot coming. And there's also a bell button on our YouTube profile. Hit that bell button, because it turns on our post notifications. So every time we post a vlog, a clip, an episode, you'll be the first to know. So make sure to hit that bell button because a lot of new content coming to you. And then also, we get to the games about an hour and a half early, just so we can get content on our Instagram. We post videos of guys warming up, working with coaches, working on certain parts of their game, getting certain shots up. So make sure to go follow us on Instagram, because we will be posting a lot of reels on there. Both games we are going to for the Detroit Pistons, they will be playing the Sacramento Kings and the Memphis Grizzlies. So big names to watch out for. Zach LaVine and John Morant, going to be really fun matchups as the Pistons gear up for the playoffs. So just make sure to like and subscribe, as we're gearing up for a lot of fun content. We always look forward to these weekends. So I'm looking forward to get some content to you guys. Let's get into episode number 16 of season 3. Before we get into today's topic, I'm sure you guys saw the thumbnail. We have an interesting one for you guys, but as we know, and I kind of want to take some time to talk about this, Cade has missed 5 straight games due to a calf contusion. Pistons injury report today says that he's day-to-day. But Ryan, something that worries me, that with the playoffs quickly approaching, do you see the Pistons sitting Cade till the first round of the playoffs? Because there's an argument that they're clinched for the playoffs. Why rush him back? Or, hey, we'd like to hopefully make a run for the 4th seed, make him play. Ryan, what are some of your thoughts as far as Cade making a return before the end of the regular season?
I think it's 50-50. I mean, like we said last week with Jaden Ivey on, okay, where are the Pistons at playoff seed-wise? That'll determine whether or not he'll get in before the regular season comes to an end. I think the same thing kind of applies here, because you could look at it as like, okay, the Timberwolves game as an example, which we're going to be talking about here. You have that game in which we fought and scrapped, and we were in it all the way until pretty much the last 3 minutes of the 4th quarter. And that's without Isaiah Stewart. That's without Ron Holland. That's without Marcus Sasser. That's without JB Bickerstaff. That's without a slew of guys. And all those guys, I can guarantee you, are probably pretty tired, beaten up. Like, they've been going through it. And even the games prior to that, with Cade being out, we've been working our tails off to get these wins and just be competitive the entire time. And so the reason why I see Cade playing, but maybe not playing, is because of that reason. Because if he plays, which will be good health wise for him, or should be, that'll make sure everybody else can rest up a little bit more because they're not having to exert as much energy and work as hard with Cade out there. Um, and so maybe you see it that way as a big positive, as like Cade's there. That's taking a lot of weight off of everyone else's shoulders to really just be themselves and not have to do too much.
Right.
And maybe
Right.
that'll bring the energy and the chemistry back. But then you could see it as like, why rush Cade back right now when we're in a spot where if we lose out and everybody else below us wins out, then we'll have an issue. But I don't see that happening. I see us still winning a couple games here and there, and a lot of the teams below us still losing. I still see that. The Bucks are a big example. They're without Damian Lillard right now. Do they force him back in when who knows what could happen there? No, they're
Right.
probably not. So I think where we're positioned at, there's no need to force, but it would make sense for him to come back too, given the fact that just from an energy standpoint, the guys have put in a crap ton of work without him out there, and just it would be nice for them to get a little bit of a breather.
Well, and when you're in the position the Pistons are in, we know we're making the playoffs. We know that we're 2 games behind the Indiana Pacers right now. We could catch them if a couple of these games go our way. And it's going to be tough to beat a team like the Kings, tough to beat a team like the Grizzlies. There are no teams to blink at. And I think you kind of need Cade's presence in those games in order to know that, like, okay, we are going to get these wins and make a run for that 4th spot, because that determines who we play in the first round. And it's a lot more friendly in our way for the Pistons as far as if they get that 4th spot. It makes that first round that much easier. So I will be watching closely what the organization decides to do with Cade Cunningham. I agree, Ryan. I think it could be 50-50. I have a feeling they've already made a decision whether he will play the rest of the season, because they've kept it kind of hush hush. There's no comments or quotes on it at all from the organization. It's just the injury report is where we're getting our news from. So I have a bad feeling that he won't play again till the first round of the playoffs, just because it's been so hush hush. I think they would have already came out and said he'll be back for so-and-so game. He'll be back against the Grizzlies, or for example, that team. So I don't know. I have a gut feeling that he won't make a return till the first round of the playoffs, just so they're sure that he's 100% a go when these games matter in a big way. Let's get into today's episode number 16. Per the thumbnail, you already know what's coming. And I know there's a lot of different opinions and takes with the suspension of Isaiah Stewart, but we're going to talk about Isaiah Stewart and co. suspended, and Joe Dumars and his involvement, and, certain players that should have gotten more games, but maybe didn't. DiVincenzo really seemed to be the guy that really spurred on the altercation. If you haven't watched the video yet or didn't watch it in real time, make sure to go look up Isaiah Stewart versus Minnesota Timberwolves brawl, basically, or scuffle. Make sure to go watch it on YouTube so you kind of have a little insight on what we're going to be talking about. But the full details of the suspension, per Shams Charania on Twitter, says NBA discipline for Pistons Timberwolves scuffle. Sources tell ESPN Isaiah Stewart 2-game suspension, Dante DiVincenzo 1-game suspension, Ron Holland 1 game, Naz Reid 1 game, Marcus Sasser 1 game. So we saw it start with between Stewart and DiVincenzo and around beginning of the third quarter, and then it just kind of kept spurring on. Ron Holland ended up fouling Naz Reid as he made a break for the basket. Naz Reid wagging a finger in Ron Holland's face, and that's when Isaiah Stewart came in and, as an enforcer, really just kind of bullied his way. Marcus Sasser, as the scuffle's coming in, really he honestly tries to throw a couple of haymakers, but neither here or there. But so Marcus Sasser kind of involved himself last minute. I think that's why they suspended him, just because he kind of spurred on the second scuffle. Ryan, I know we were talking in a group chat about it earlier about the suspensions. What are some of your first thoughts? Is it fair? Are the Timberwolves a bunch of punks? Are the Pistons punks? What are some of your first thoughts on this scuffle? Because we haven't had time to talk about it yet.
So to me, I understand why Stewart was given the 2 games just because of his recent track record.
Yeah.
But I don't think he should have been suspended 2 games. I think if you go and look at everyone on there, Dante DiVincenzo getting 1 game is absurd. He should have at least
Crazy.
been given 2 games because, like, just match him to Stu. Like, just match him.
Yep.
If you take Dante DiVincenzo out of what initially was Naz Reid and Ron Holland, that whole brawl, whatever you may want to call it, wouldn't have even taken place. If you take Dante DiVincenzo away from the situation at hand, that doesn't happen because it wasn't going to happen. At most, what would have happened was just some chirping back and forth between Naz Reid and Ron Holland. That's about it. Let's be honest. Ron Holland, yes, there been times where, again, you look back at the Pacers, he did try to throw hands a little bit. He was getting ready. But like outside of that, he hasn't tried to fight anyone. I mean,
No.
maybe been confrontational, but not necessarily fight someone. And then like and outside of Naz Reid, okay, Naz Reid, I will say I love the player. He is a fantastic player. Being a second round
awesome.
talent and being as good as you are as a role player in the NBA, that's what you want in a role player. And I would love for him to be on the Pistons, to be honest. But that being said, he comes over and is pointing the finger at Ron Holland. So obviously some things were said back and forth. And if you watch even what took place resulting in why Naz Reid was going at Ron Holland, nothing really happened. There was not like a hard foul or anything. It was just you knocked the ball out of the way and just I'm sure Ron Holland said something and that resulted in Naz Reid doing that. But Dante DiVincenzo, he literally put his hands initially on Ron Holland, which started the whole thing because he tried to like push him out of the way. And I'm like, okay, first off, just watching it, you're going like, and it to me, you recall Juwan Howard, Michigan, Wisconsin's head coach. There, I can't even remember his name because I don't like him. But you look back at what happened, 3-4 years ago now, where we obviously lost the game. Michigan lost the game. Wisconsin's coach grabs Juwan in the handshake line and is trying to like talk to him. First off, you can tell that Juwan Howard is visibly upset, and yet you're grabbing onto him, not letting him walk away. Like, come on. That's essentially what Dante DiVincenzo did to Ron Holland, is he put his hands on him when there didn't even need to be hands put on anyone. And then Ron Holland doesn't like that because he's trying to talk to Naz Reid, gives him a little shove. What does Dante DiVincenzo do? He literally puts him in like a chokehold. And I'm like, dude, come on.
Totally.
So to me, the fact that he only got 1 game, and don't get me wrong, I love Dante DiVincenzo. I love Villanova basketball. I love Jay Wright. Jay Wright is by far one of the best coaches in college basketball history, and I would say just in basketball history alone. But with that being said, what Dante DiVincenzo did, and not even just initiating, but continuing on, if you watch the full reel, he not only initiates first contact, but then at the very end, he's still pushing and shoving and chirping. Yep. And yet he's only given 1 game. But Isaiah Stewart, who, if you go back to the initial situation at hand, wasn't even anywhere in sight, wasn't involved at all. And then all of a sudden he comes flying in to defend his teammates. Yeah, he did punch, and yeah, he did grab a certain area that, well, probably shouldn't have grabbed.
Dude, he's crazy.
But if you take just that one little situation, yes, he did come flying in, but he didn't come flying in with a punch. It was more of like he was trying to go like, hey, back off. But outside of that, Dante DiVincenzo should have been given more than just 1 game. Marcus Sasser getting the 1 game, that's just like one of those things where it's kind of like he was there. There was contact from him, so you kind of have to give him a suspension. Naz Reid, you kind of have to give him a suspension because he's technically the one that started the whole thing. Ron Holland, you have to give a suspension to because he also initiated contact with Dante DiVincenzo with a shove, but then was
Yeah.
chirping at Naz Reid. So I can understand the getting what they got. But Dante DiVincenzo getting the one game versus Stu getting two, when Stu comparatively, if you look at them side by side, Dante DiVincenzo was the whole reason why that
Yeah.
thing even took place.
Dude, he never stopped talking the whole third quarter. I mean, he was talking the whole time up and down the court. And about 30 seconds previous to Ron Holland's foul on Naz Reid that spurred on the big scuffle, you heard Dante just constantly talking and yelling and just would not shut up. And you know that Stu is just boiling inside. You know that he's just getting riled up because we all know how Isaiah Stewart is. And Dante definitely knew what he was doing. And I think that Dante definitely just kept like the issue continuing. Like if everyone just had stopped talking after the initial I believe it was early third quarter where like everything kind of started before the big scuffle. If Dante had just stopped, that scuffle would have never have happened, but he just kept talking and kept talking. And there's one thing that is true in all of this is that Ron Holland and Isaiah Stewart will never step down to anybody. Like they're always up for it. And honestly, what is there a more scary fighting duo in the NBA right now? Ron Holland, if I saw Ron Holland and Isaiah Stewart just ready to go, I'd be like, I'm running as fast as I can. I'm so scared. Like they are just a dynamic duo that they're both just great enforcers. I love that this Pistons team has an edge in the way they do of just not backing down to anybody. It's just unfortunate to see it happen to a guy like Naz Reid and Dante. I respect both of their skill sets. I think they're both just very dynamic players. I would have thought it would have happened against Jalen Green and Tari Eason against the Houston Rockets. I never thought it would be the Timberwolves, kind of a random rivalry that's building there. It was also just a great game to watch the first 3.5 quarters. It was so much fun. They ended up winning by, over 20 points in the last bit. That's really because we didn't have Cade in the stretch. But this is going to be a good rivalry that I think as Pistons fans and Timberwolves fans, we can look forward to in the future. It's just kind of like, I feel the NBA wronged Isaiah Stewart in a little bit. And that's what we'll kind of talk about now. So Joe Dumars made the final call and the press release came from his office as NBA vice president. Joe Dumars addressed Beef Stew's suspension. He said, quote, suspension based on repeated history. What's interesting here, Ryan, is I understand warnings. I understand maybe Stu's been warned a couple times. Maybe he is on a strike basis of, hey, you got this many strikes, you therefore get this suspension. But as far as this incident alone, this scuffle, getting 2 games is just out of hand. And I think it's kind of interesting that Joe Dumars is so involved with this project, like with this whole suspension, because Isaiah Thomas right after on NBA TV is like, I'm back in my Pistons. These are my boys. And then Joe Dumars is the guy, that's like the most public talking about the suspension. So it's kind of interesting that duo on the Bad Boys team are so involved with this situation. Those 80s bad boys always get themselves involved with stuff. But it was at least nice seeing Isaiah Thomas rather on NBA TV, just really backing up his boys, because that's important as far as, Isaiah Stewart's kind of getting this name of being a bad boy. You need those guys on TV, national television, backing our guys, because we can't have everybody slandering Isaiah Stewart. Ryan, what are some of your thoughts on this Joe Dumars situation? You'd think that he wouldn't even want his name attached since it's with Detroit.
To me, again, I understand why you suspended him, because obviously he was in the wrong. He shouldn't have come flying in like he did. But just if you're going to suspend him for 2 games, make it fair. And that's all I'm asking. That's all Pistons fans are asking. Make it fair. And honestly, not even just Pistons, NBA fans, make it fair. That's all we want. Because, and again, I don't understand how DiVincenzo walked away with the 1 versus Stewart with the 2. And I understand repeated history, but I also could throw repeated history into the conversation with Dante DiVincenzo. Not that Dante has sat here time and time again and started fights like that. No, but he's known around the NBA for chirping at other players, for just being a little bit of a tough guy, which he is a tough guy. He's a very tough guy. But the point is, like, he is one of those players that will keep chirping, keep chirping, keep chirping, and there's no punishment there. And yet Isaiah Stewart has the one situation with LeBron James, and ever since then, everybody is out for Isaiah Stewart, saying he is just does not deserve to be in the NBA, has no talent at all, and it ticks me off because you think about it this way: that whole LeBron situation. Any casual fan out there, which is majority of the casual fans are the people that comment on any basketball related post as far as Pistons basketball goes, and it's just annoying because you can see how casual some fans are versus how some fans aren't, and just normal sports fans get a bad rap because all the casual fans just throw themselves into the mix, and then it just is like, come on, people, what are you even talking about right now? But the point is, you go back to the one situation with LeBron James, 2 years ago now, where you see that highlight and everybody loves LeBron. Clearly so, because we have 4 or 5 different remixes of loving LeBron. Like, what the heck is going on there? But you think of just that one altercation per se, in which LeBron literally threw an elbow to Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart initially did nothing, but LeBron throws the elbow. Everybody is upset with Isaiah Stewart for chasing him down, which I understand. Yeah, you shouldn't have chased him down or tried to chase him down in the tunnel. That's on you, Stu. You probably shouldn't have done that. But tasting blood in your mouth, an initial instinct for anyone is like, what the heck? Why did they just do this to me? But the reason I bring that up is because that one situation that happened 2-3 years ago now is getting brought back up today because of the recent altercation that Stu got involved in with Minnesota and the Timberwolves. And I make that point just because you think back at all these casual fans seeing that clip and then seeing this clip. The Pistons don't have nationally televised games. So to their benefit of the doubt, it's not like they're seeing Isaiah Stewart on any given night and what he's actually doing. Because some of these people are sitting there commenting that he's a bum and that he should not be in the NBA and all he does is get into fights. But if you take those 2 altercations per se that happened involving Stu, he gets a terrible rap. But if you actually sat down and watched the Pistons game, you would see he's more than just a fighter. He's actually doing something. He's very efficient right now. Some of his stats are absurdly efficient. Like just his shot blocking percentage around the rim, crazy. And he's undersized for his position. He's not even that big. And then you compare like just his overall shooting. Like his shooting, he added a 3-point shot 2 years ago now when nobody thought he could probably add a 3-point shot. And he shoots it at a decent clip for what it's worth. Like he's a good player. But just because of the LeBron situation and then this recent situation, and then nobody actually paying attention to Pistons basketball, he gets a bad rap. And that frustrates me because you just think of Isaiah Stewart as a person, which all of us Pistons fans know about, is he is a genuine human being. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he's just wanting to protect his teammates, really. And JB Bickerstaff broke that down in the press conference following the game, in which he did talk to the media with. He literally said, I told these guys from day one, protect your teammates, protect your brothers out there. That's your job. Protect them at all times. Even if you have to stand your ground, you protect them. Isaiah Stewart was not initiating contact or trying to start a fight. He was protecting Ron Holland because Dante DiVincenzo had him in a chokehold. That's what happened. It wasn't Isaiah Stewart comes flying in with a soccer punch trying to kill Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo. No. Yeah. He was protecting Ron Holland, who was in a chokehold. That's what was happening. So to me, just the overall media coverage and just the overall fan perspective on Isaiah Stewart has been frustrating me recently because it's like all these casual fans that have no idea what actually is going on in Pistons basketball are commenting on the situation that they have no idea anything about. All they've seen is that clip and they just know the recent history with LeBron and all of that. So they're putting judgment on Stu saying he shouldn't be in the league and whatnot. So that's my frustrations there. As far as Isaiah Thomas, love you. IT is the GOAT. Well, Pistons GOAT. One of the by far the best point guards of all time. That's not debatable. But him backing up the Pistons organization after what just took place, following Joe Dumars throwing out the 2-game suspension, I give him props. Thank you, IT, because you gotta let Joe know that the 2 games was uncalled for because Dante DiVincenzo was the initiator. It wasn't Stu. But again, I'm not liking the bad rap that fans and the media are putting on Stu.
Well, and Joe Dumars just looks like a casual by saying, "Oh, the repeated history." He gets the suspension because of repeated history. He's had 3 situations in his 5-year career, and it was the one with Eubanks, LeBron, and then now this most recent one. 3 in 5 years. It's not like Draymond Green where he has a whole 10-minute highlight reel of kicking people in the nuts. It's like, oh, repeated history. Oh, that's just dumb. And I like Joe. I appreciate everything he did for the Detroit Pistons. I liked him when he was a GM of the Pistons, but it's just like he just is making himself look like a casual when Isaiah Stewart is more than just a hothead. He's a great defender, like you said, and just an overall great NBA player, and he's going to be for many, many years. And it just seems like the media is stamping bad guy on him when we all know he is not a bad guy. Just he gets riled up, and when guys like Dante DiVincenzo keep poking, yeah, Stu's going to blow up. The refs should have taken care of it before it ever got to that. They should have told, hey, Dante, quit talking, man. Quit talking, Dante. You can't keep talking. It's gonna blow over. And he just kept talking. And that's what I think Stu is getting put in a position where he's getting treated unfairly. I'd love to know his thoughts about it. I wish he was a Twitter guy because I'd love to know his thoughts. If Draymond Green felt like he was getting treated unfairly, he'd be going to Twitter right away. So I just wish Isaiah was a little bit more outspoken in that way. And as far as guys like Isaiah Thomas backing us up, backing the Detroit Pistons up, JB Bickerstaff did the same. He backed up his Detroit Pistons team. In a press conference after the game, he had a few quotes. This article is coming from CBS Sports. Jasmine Wimbish. It goes on to say 7 ejections were given after the situation calmed down, as all the players listed above were removed from the game, as well as Timberwolves assistant coach Pablo Prigioni and Pistons head coach JB Bickerstaff. JB goes on to say, quote, obviously things went too far, Bickerstaff said after the Pistons loss. But what you see is guys looking out for one another, guys trying to protect one another, guys trying to have each other's backs. Those are non-negotiables in our locker room. Chills, Ryan, chills. JB Bickerstaff saying, yeah, you know what? Maybe they did fight. Maybe I wish it didn't go that far, but backing each other up, protecting one another, looking out for one another, those are non-negotiables in our locker room. And that's the kind of team and coaching that is going to make this Detroit Pistons go far. And I just like that JB doesn't back down to the media as much as they want him to, as much as they try to put their finger on him and push him down. He's like, no, these are non-negotiables. Dante can't be talking to us like that. We're not disrespected like we once were in today's NBA. Ryan, I think it just proves to me a lot of JB's respect for his team and how bought in he is with this Detroit Pistons team. It proves a lot to me.
To me, it shows a perfect fit. And I love Chuck Daly. I love Larry Brown. I love Flip Saunders. I love Rick Carlisle. I love all of our past coaches. And JB Bickerstaff, I don't love Monty Williams. Just want to point that out.
Or Stan Van Gundy.
Yeah, that too. Don't get me started. That's a rabbit hole right there if you ever needed one. But what JB Bickerstaff is doing right now is he is putting in a phenomenal foundation as to why he is seemingly the perfect candidate for this job. Because you look back in the previous coaching cycle of candidates there, and JB Bickerstaff, we didn't talk about a whole lot. We didn't think that was necessarily a possibility versus who was out there. But I am absolutely in love with the hire. From day one till now, every single time he is in the press conferences, anytime he's on the sideline, it doesn't matter when or where, he is not only standing up for his players, standing up for the organization, but then showing up for us Pistons fans, for us Michiganders, for everybody in the state. He is trying to show and just create a good foundation and culture for our organization that we've struggled to establish the last couple of years. It's been rough between Monty Williams and then even Dwayne Casey retiring essentially. Just retiring there and then getting thrown into the mix with Monty. That was just a rabbit hole. Troy Weaver was terrible. Stan Van Gundy, awful. Granted, I'm bringing up intentionally because he did not help the situation at all. But I mean, you could say he also helped because look where we're at now. Same with Troy Weaver and Monty Williams. But no, what JB Bickerstaff is doing right now is sitting, well, not just for me, but for the players and for you. Everybody knows he is the coach of the year. And it is 100% accurate. Totally. Because you look back at last year, 14-42, like that is absurd. You tripled your wins. You tripled your wins. When's the last time that happened? Oh, let me guess. Not anytime recently, because that's the first time in NBA history that we went from 14-42 wins in the first season as the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. He has to be coach of the year. Not just from that, but just from the factor alone of how he's revitalized Cade Cunningham, how he's revitalized Jalen Duren, how he's brought Tim Hardaway Jr. out of what people thought was nothing because his last season in Dallas wasn't spectacular. Everybody thought he fell off the planet of the earth, but I can't even talk right now. I'm just like, oh, but what Tim Hardaway Jr. was last year, what he is this year, completely different player. But honestly, it's not the completely different player. He just had a different role in Dallas. Malik Beasley, everybody wrote him off, thought he was kind of like, yeah, he's just one of those role players. Coming in, he's probably, honestly, without Ivy, he's the second option outside of Cade. He's that good. And a lot of these moves that the Pistons have made is because of the philosophy and the ideas behind what he thinks this team could look like in JB Bickerstaff. And the press conference just hit the nail on the coffin for me and just establish himself as like, oh my goodness, he is perfect for this team. Because JB Bickerstaff, like pretty much everybody on this team, have been written off. JB Bickerstaff, and I actually saw this the other day. So the Grizzlies just fired Taylor Jenkins, which I think is a terrible decision. Not that we cover Memphis Grizzlies basketball or anything, but he is the winningest coach in their franchise's history. And you just fired him. They are currently 5th in the West right now. If the playoffs ended today, they'd be one of the top teams in the NBA. And they just fired him with 9 games left of the season. Why? But the point is, I bring that up because 4 of their last 5 coaches have been fired after their first playoff berth in recent years. And one of the coaches was JB Bickerstaff. He gets hired as an interim head coach following the firing of David Fizdale, who I personally think is a terrible coach, but that's neither here nor there. Comes in, and they're like, okay, we'll give you this shot. And then they're like, after the season came to an end, they never gave him an opportunity to really establish himself and actually promote him. They're just like, no, we don't want anything to do with you. You were just kind of like just an added in guy because we didn't want to pay all this money to somebody outside of the team. We just wanted to bring somebody inside of the team in and just work with that. And so like every single place he's been written off. But Detroit, he's not been written off because him being written off leading to this job is the reason why we're in a position we're in, because it just motivates him even more to be like, okay, I am here for this team. And Trajan Langdon believes that. The whole team believes that. And just him backing the whole situation at hand, I gave him major props. And again, he's establishing himself as one of the great Pistons coaches. And I know that's bold to say after one season, but when you go from 14 wins to 42 wins in that short of a span, like, he has to have established himself as a Pistons great coach. Obviously, nothing close to Chuck Daly or Larry Brown or Flip Saunders, but he is by far, in my eyes, one of the best coaches in Pistons history right off the get-go. And I know that's bold for me to say, but I just, when he's backing his team like this and showing results on top of it, he has to be there.
Yeah, because it's easy to go on the podium and say certain things and pretend like you're backing your team, but he's really shown us time and time again that he's fully invested. And this Pistons team and him are forever etched in history with the NBA record that they set this season. And if he doesn't win Coach of the Year, that's one of the biggest snubs I've ever seen. I think some of these and a couple other people are up for awards. This upcoming offseason with Trajan Langdon possibly being executive of the year, turning the Pistons team around, getting a lot of great free agents. Of course, JB Bickerstaff. Cade Cunningham is, as of right now, the favorite to win most improved player. Sixth man of the year could be Malik Beasley. You just never know. There's a lot of awards that the Pistons could be racking up this season. I'm very, very excited about it. Make sure to comment below your thoughts on JB Bickerstaff's comments, and then also comment below about the scuffle between the Detroit Pistons and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do you think the suspension was fair? Do you think Joe Dumars backed his guys? I'm not exactly sure. Make sure to like and subscribe. Be out on the lookout with our Detroit content coming up this weekend, and we will see you guys in next week's episode. Peace.